Thank you very much for introducing me. My speech will be maybe less theoretical, about not referring that much to thoughts from the past, but rather more practical, developing certain elements that are important in the context of classical education that can be improved, and also some things that we can do in practice in order to facilitate classical education and to use it in contemporary times. So the first important thing to say is that classical education nowadays cannot be used in its original form at a one-to-one ratio, because things have changed and the world has changed. However, classical education can be a method for education, and it can be carried out in contemporary times, in the contemporary context, to implement classical education here and now. The system of education is constantly changing. As we have already said, the curriculum has changed. This provides an impulse to us, some momentum to act. So, on the one hand, there is the ministry, but on the other hand, teachers, caretakers, scientists, researchers can also do something to implement and develop classical education. We can see already a network of subjects at school that can be a basis for this. So firstly, philosophy. Philosophy can already be taught at schools. It can be even at the high school final exam. We have Latin language, antique culture, and elements of rhetoric. Not rhetoric as such, as a subject, not just yet, but within classes of Polish language, there is a lot of rhetoric, of classical rhetoric, already included. So if the teachers have the possibility to study this deeper and prepare themselves, which will be supported by the ministry, because the ministry has already been preparing courses for teachers, we would like to have rhetoric and debate as part of the Polish lessons. So the decision has not been made yet, but it is an opportunity for teachers to get new tools, to use them to teach Polish language as a matter of rhetoric, as experts in this respect, and not just amateurs or hobbyists.
So that's why I think it's worth looking at those elements, because it's not only an idea that is not accessible, that is part of the past, but it's something real that we can transfer to our pupils, give them strength to this, thanks to this message, and show them that it can really happen at school. There are also other elements that we tend to forget, and it was also mentioned by Professor Mamcarz-Plisiecki, which is that only educating by touching upon some elements of classical education requires some thought, some reflection. And here an important element are debates, which are organized more and more often all over Poland. The Institute of Educational Research filed an application for researching a formula which consists of introducing rhetoric as not a subject at school, but as a school debating clubs. And those clubs would then have the opportunity to formulate some arguments, to show pros and cons within a debate, and to be prepared for rhetoric as such. So those are elements which I think will be introduced in the future. But now, briefly, I would like to show you some points which have already been introduced and also mentioned in previous speeches. But on top of that, I would like to add two things related to rhetoric and another thing related to modern upbringing. The first thing is a rhetoric contest. In a Polish rhetoric contest for primary schools. It took place already 2 times, and it gathered a lot of participants. And this competition, and I must stress it because I was part of the jury there, is not anymore a poetry competition, but it introduces this real classical rhetoric-based formula, which is based on a canon, which is presented to pupils as something that consists on preparing a speech, but also requires some knowledge, some basic knowledge about rhetoric. So this element has already been introduced. On the one hand, we have within the curriculum some things which are already there. We are handbooks for primary, rhetoric handbooks for primary and high schools. So we have a competition. So all this gives us our strength, the strength to our message. It's not only about having a book or a curriculum. If we don't implement it in reality, don't show it to young people, so regardless of what kind of ministry we have, nothing will happen. So if the ministry facilitates this process, then we, on our side, we can also support on our own those young people, help them develop. It's not a reproach, but it's on the contrary. I'm really glad that a lot of teachers attend those competitions with their pupils. It's something which is a unique experience, a common experience they go through. And on the other hand, it's also a deep-rooted work effort showing that it makes sense. If we have in a rhetoric contest 300 or 400 participants at school level, then it shows the strength of classical message, at least in the rhetoric context. And the second point I would like to mention is Rhetoric Olympics. The first edition was this year. And this has shown, in fact, that the level of high schools in the context of this classical approach, of course, because there, well, when we have the finale, there are some legal arguments and so on, which are brought forward. So we are attached to a specific canon. So the whole procedure during this contest, the preparation procedure is not very simple, but it's based on this classical approach, which means that, as someone said in his previous speech, is not about arguments, bringing forward arguments, but it's also countering someone else's arguments. And this is really appreciated by young people. It's not only a show. They feel really strong link to that, and they prepare very well themselves to that. And also teachers are involved. They get deep into this subject, and it's a very unique experience for them. So as Aristotle said, through this experience, and thanks to this experience, they have more takeaways. So if there is such a situation already, it has to be continued, of course. This initiative has to be continued. And in this context, I would like to thank 2 people who are responsible for organizing this whole process. The competition for primary schools. Here we have Professor Małgorzata Sagan, who's responsible for those contests. She was supposed to be with us, but for health reasons she cannot be here. I think that she would talk a bit more about, to be able to talk a bit more about it. And Mr. Lisiecki, he was also responsible of the huge part regarding the preparation of Olympics, and thanks to him it will be growing as an initiative. So this gives us to a great extent those palpable, visible proofs, and shows us what we can see within this community of people who work in the education, of teachers who can reiterate those ideas and carry them over, practically carry them over, and in fact promote a trend that it becomes trendy to participate in rhetoric debates. It's an already strong trend in Poland now. So to some extent it's already been introduced, and all we have to do is to extend this initiative further. I would like to invite teachers and all other people to strengthen this initiative, to take part in it, and then to see how fruitful it is. What is important about rhetoric is that we are having a communication problem nowadays. It's very dangerous as a phenomenon. So what we have to do is not only to learn how to speak well, but also how to communicate well and see what are the threats that are carried over by communication. So I must say that what is binding till today, it's Aristotle's sophistics, proofs, countering book. This is still up to date. So we are giving our young people all those necessary tools. Classical rhetorics is not only about having a speech and that's all. No, in the contrary, it's related to the whole richness of classical world. And the second thing that I already mentioned, and I also consider it very crucial in the context of our functioning as people who are dealing with classical education, and in this case not only with the education but also upbringing. Upbringing is important from the perspective of every pupil, but not only from the perspective of pupils. We are now implementing within our institute a new project related to problems of the modern upbringing, and this project started a year ago, and it was initiated by, in fact, our congresses, which took place a year ago and 2 years ago. And I think that this project shows us the other approach to classicism. This project aims at discussing what are the feelings of the young people today, showing their real problems in our today's world, and helping them understand some crucial elements related to modern culture and to the perception of the world, which is questioning authorities' moral relativism, which dominate now. It doesn't mean that we are here to stop everything. It doesn't mean that all the young people are already respecting all those new rules, but ethics, virtues, and the forms of understanding the world, some forms of understanding the human being, this personalistic approach to a human being as being something which is growing dynamically. If we expose those factors in an appropriate way and present them properly to the youngest, they will accept easier, of course. We are not here to present them theories, but we should present them examples. An example is then also a starting point for a reflection. If the starting point is well chosen, then the reflection will be richer. So the work which is done by a group headed by Professor Piotr Nowakowski has already published a series of texts. You can see at the reception desk 3 first volumes out of 12 volumes to be published. You can see the first one here, the first book where we are dealing with the situation of modern youth. And those books will not be only of theoretical nature. They will not present only the theoretical approach to young people, but they will also try to analyze the situation of young people and what problems young people have to deal with. As I said, 3 volumes have already been published, but what is now being prepared are 9 other volumes, 9 remaining volumes, and you can, of course, download them from our webpage, from our institute webpage. In your documents, you have a QR code on this leaflet you got, and thanks to that, you can download our books. Apart from that, there is also a more accessible way to do it, which means going to our webpage, and on the project tab, under the project tab, there is a link about modern upbringing problems, and there you have all the PDFs. You can use it as you wish. Those are only printed versions. Here you can consult them outside of this room to see what approach we adopted. What we tried when publishing those books was to present not only problems. We wanted this language to be simple, not to use this academia language. We wanted to use daily and everyday language when talking about human upbringing. So in this context, we can use it. You can consider it as an aid, something that would help you in your activities on a daily basis. And what was already mentioned by Professor Skrzydlewski is that the upbringing is an important element of education. If that's so we have to find the key to the youngest ones through this upbringing aspect, and only then to strengthen their possibilities of getting proper education and training. Mr. Woroniecki said that the upbringing was an element that required the unification of all the virtues in perfecting oneself. Education. What's the difference between education and upbringing? Is that we can be good at mathematics and we can geography, but in this context, please pay attention to the fact that if we learn something within our upbringing and we find our way to the youngest ones, and we try to show them some things, show them how they should act, how they should deal with their problems. Give an example, because what I stress here is that this is important, to give examples. Only then we can achieve successes elsewhere, success in other fields. And so these books are here to help you how to